welcome to another live Action for Happiness event. My name's Mark Williamson, and it's so fantastic that you can join us for this gathering of the Action for Happiness community. So many people all around the world taking action to create a happier and kinder world together. I'm delighted to see so many of you here again and also greeting each other in a normal, constructive, kind and friendly way. So please do keep doing that throughout this event. And I'm particularly pleased that we're joined today by Rhonda Magee. Rhonda, it's lovely to have you here. Thanks for coming.
Thank you. It's wonderful to be here with you.
So I'm excited about this theme because it brings together two, I think, areas that are of such importance to members of this community. One is about that sort of mindful awareness that we all want to cultivate, but the other is about how we can bring that to life in our lives, not just for ourselves, but for how we are in the world and how we relate to each other and the many challenges in our world. For anyone who's new to these events, the format is that in a moment, Rhonda and I will begin a conversation where we can try and share some of her amazing work and insights in this area of mindfulness, particularly sort of socially engaged mindfulness. We'll have a chance to practice some activities together during this time so you can actually experience this and take away some practical tips. And then towards the end, you'll have a chance to ask a Q&A function. I wondered if we could start, maybe if you could just spend a little while telling us about your own journey, obviously your relevance to this field, but also, your own personal story and why it's so important to you.
Well, thank you so much. I just preface it by saying that, although my main job for the last 25 years or so has been teaching at a university here in California in the United States, University of San Francisco, actually. I've been teaching at the law school there. And, just to have that particular role, person like me, for those who can see me visually, you'll see kind of a brown skin. Actually, it's hard to tell in these boxes, but I'm pretty petite, cisgender female. To find my way into a kind of a traditionally white male profession of a law professor in the United States was no small thing. And in the course of, making my way into that, going to law school and, doing all the different things that I needed to do, I, was navigating a world and seeing some of the ways that, my own identity, but moving that identity through spaces and places that were opened up because of social change. How that was both this beautiful opportunity for me, and I know that in the encounters I had with many other people, it was met as a positive opportunity for many people, but it also involved some various kinds of challenges. And I should also say that as part of that, I was also one of these folks who sort of had opportunities for what we in the US sometimes call class straddling, because I had also grown up relatively impoverished in the southern part of the United States, which is, associated with that long history of segregation and all those things. So for me, it was quite a journey to move from the southern US, North Carolina and Virginia, to California, the East Coast to West Coast, and to move across these different cultural terrains, and to move from a non-professional to a professional setting. My parents had not gone to university. So lots of challenges. And so I found myself succeeding, but also feeling isolated, sometimes disconnected. And at some point I remembered that deep in my own personal history was the memory of my grandmother, who didn't have all these opportunities, grew up as a woman in a very different time altogether, still with even fewer actually opportunities. But one thing she had figured out was how she could begin her own day every day with her sort of curated set of practices for centering herself, reminding herself of the most important things to take into her day. For her, it was a devotional practice based in Christianity. She was Christian heritage, but it was a daily commitment of getting up before she had to really gather herself and then bring some intentionality to how she would meet the day. And so witnessing my grandmother do all of that, it left an imprint, so that when I landed in San Francisco, about to start my first law job, and knew I needed something to help support calming the mind and being more focused and more self-directed, I remembered that, and I started to look for opportunities that would fit with my own life and path to center myself in a kind of a more intentional way. And that led me to explore meditation. And here I am many years later.
And here you are doing fantastic work. Thank you so much for that background. It's fascinating to hear your journey. And I'm really looking forward to sharing some of your practices so we can experience that together. But before we dive into the first of those, I wondered if we could just pause and recognize where we are in the world and in our lives right now. Something you mentioned when we met was about, so many of us are struggling with difficult times. And I'd really just invite your reflections on that, because I sense that maybe even just us recognizing that this is it's a common to struggle is a helpful starting point. Is that right?
Absolutely right. And even as we point toward the story of my grandmother and her inspiration to me, it's pointing to, again, these broader social, the context, the settings we find ourselves in, and how they impact us, how they can be both inspiration for doing something the best we can to make the best of our circumstances. But it's not easy for most of us. It wasn't easy for my grandmother then, growing up in the mid-20th century under conditions of segregation and sexism and everything else, legacies of white supremacy. It's not easy for us today. Many of us, in very different ways, are struggling post-COVID, in the midst of, ongoing sorts of conflict that are showing up in more or less extreme outbreaks of violence. Of our best and scientists and social supporters are helping us see patterns that cause us to really want to reflect on how we might do better. Patterns like increased levels of polarization, real difference, increased levels of political disconnect, but also social and cultural disconnect. People are feeling lonelier across many of our societies. In the US, our Surgeon General recently highlighted it. I don't know if an epidemic of loneliness is the right phrase, but that more and more across all different sectors, people are feeling socially isolated. People are feeling, less of a sense of that capacity to find common ground. And so it's in times like this where you add to it climate distress, right? You add to it economic and the AI revolution that is now in the, in ways we can't even imagine, changing everything. A lot of us are feeling unmoored. And so, yes, I think this is an especially poignant time, for us to come together. When we come together like this, I imagine almost a big circle around a campfire, because our human ancestors, when in all of the evidence, archaeological, anthropological, tells us, sitting in circle and reconnecting in times of distress has been a feature of human nations in the direction of well-being for tens and tens of thousands of years, actually, before written recorded human evidence. But so know from what we do when we're in distress. So I really honor everybody for coming around the webinar circle, the online circle today, because it is a moment where we could benefit from being together and focusing on, the actual practices that support us in being well together.
Thank you, Rhonda. And I think this reminds me, in what you're saying, that kind of we're not alone, really, whatever our different difficulties look like. There's something common about that sort of struggle that we do face on a day-to-day basis, and that we have some element of choice in how to respond to it. So I'd love to invite you to help us maybe ground ourselves with a bit of mindfulness, and maybe remind us of this amazing ability we have to pay attention to just the simple things that are going on for us. So we're in your safe hands, Rhonda.
Thank you, my dear Mark. And so, to all of us here gathered around the metaphorical campfire, and I'll say campfire because for most of us it's getting a little bit on the cooler side, maybe winter's approaching. But if where you are, it's warm enough that the metaphor of a lake, a cooling lake feels better, have at it. So pausing then, just as we are, and perhaps taking one or two deeper than usual breaths for you. And as we do so, calling to mind the one or two concrete aspects of your environment. And we're going to use these objects of awareness just to remind us that we have within our capacity in any moment the ability to focus our mind at will. So what I invite you to do is think of the wall that's closest to you if you're looking straight out forward. What is that wall that's closest to you? So just call to mind what either you can see right now if your eyes are open, or if the eyes are closed, what you're recalling about that wall. Maybe the color, maybe some texture, maybe there's a window there, maybe there isn't. So just allowing the mind coming together from all of its far-flung different points of engagement and attending and focusing on this one feature of an aspect of your environment external to your body in this moment. And as you breathe in and out, now inviting letting go of the reflection on the wall, and now attending to the sense and sensations of sound in your environment. Now, to the degree you can hear my voice, and some of us may be reading a transcript as a way of following along. So if sound is a feature of your experience, attending to the particularity of the sounds that you're able to experience. And if you're differently able to, in this way and are reading a transcript or otherwise perceiving inputs to what's going on, allowing yourself to focus in on the sensations that enable receiving those inputs. We might be sensing relative silence in the spaces between the sounds of my voice speaking. We might be hearing sounds of cars or whirring of machines, slow sounds of motors in your environment in some way. So just noticing the quality and characteristic of sound or other perceptive capacity that may be available to those whose experience features a characteristic of not enabling listening, but perceiving the world through other senses. And now releasing the focus on the characteristic of sound or sensing sound or perceiving aspects of our external environment, and inviting a focus now a bit more inward, or perhaps at that intersection between internal mindfulness and external, maybe noticing points of contact between body and the chair or cushion or other structure that you're resting your body on right now. So it could be points of contact between buttocks and the chair, the back of the chair. Maybe your attention is going actually to feet on the floor, feeling the connection between body and the structure beneath you. So just placing your attention on one of those points of connection between your body and the supports that exist for you right here, right now. And now perhaps bringing the attention even more inward, breathing in and breathing out and sensing the spaciousness extending to the bounds, the skin that you're in, the body as a whole, from feet on the floor, if they are resting on the floor, but from feet up to the crown of the head, breathing in and breathing out, feeling the spaciousness of your body in this moment. And now just taking a very conscious turn toward feeling the sensations of breathing in and out, picking up on in-breath or out-breath, wherever you happen to find yourself right now, and feeling the gentle impact and sensations of breathing in, breathing out. Perhaps noticing if that was just a relatively short or long breath for you. No judgment, no preference, just noticing. Noticing the changing quality of breath in and out. And as we bring this moment of mindful attending to a close, maybe just noticing one thing about the impact on your experience right now of a conscious breath in and out. Perhaps breathing out just a little bit longer than you breathe in there. And then resting in this way again of the breath in and out as we transition from that practice, opening eyes, letting the eyes flutter open if they've been closed. And otherwise, just preparing now for this interpersonal mindfulness of listening and bearing witness and participating in chat to this conversation.
Thank you, Rhonda. I found that had a huge impact on my state of mind. And I'm really grateful that everyone sort of turned off the chat during that and really paid attention to what you were saying. But folks, if you'd like to respond to Rhonda's little nudge to us all then at the end, to just notice how you're feeling right now, what came up for you, how you're feeling at the end of that exercise. I'd love to see whatever you'd like to share briefly in the chat. What I found myself was yeah, just actually things like noticing sounds that I hadn't heard until I paid attention, and then noticing that change in my breath helped me calm down. I'm seeing people saying feeling calm, peaceful, refreshed, relaxed, energized, being present, need more of this, and lots of other lovely words: grounded, in the moment, chilled, slower, calmer. Yes, the world could do with lots more of much of that, couldn't it? So thank you, Rhonda, on behalf of all of us.
Thank you. Appreciating this very much. And I already have one hand over the heart too, just reading myself some of these beautiful reflections and feeling, in a way, I can sort of almost feel as I read these words a little bit of sense of that calm, slowing down, peacefulness, and the sense that there was something that wasn't so calm before. Reminds me, placing the hand over the heart, a sense of gratitude that these practices can help give us a little bit of a oasis in the midst of desert, or calm in the midst of storms.
We're going to talk in a moment about this wider context of mindfulness and how it relates to the world around us, our relationships, the things we care about. But let's just start, if we can, with this practice that you've just reminded us of, something I think many of us have an aspiration to make part of our daily lives. And yet in the busyness of our lives, it can be hard to sort of make it a feature. I always love that quote that says you should meditate for whatever, half an hour every day, except on busy days when you should do an hour, which it's a lovely reminder that actually the times we need this most are sometimes the times that we least feel that we have time available. How have you found, Rhonda, best to think about making a mindful approach part of daily life?
I think it has varied over the years for me, from periods where I kind of really was sort of like, we're going to do this and we're going to make sure that we make commitments the night before, and we set up a space. We, put water sometimes at the space so we didn't just know we can go and sit in a particular place. I've for years had a particular location in my home set aside for my practice. And over the years, I've kind of cultivated a way of allowing that space to really feel safe and to kind of have that energy of affirmation that this matters, this is important. So I have some quotes that have changed over the years, sometimes some images, little statues of, inspirations to me, the Buddha features, right, in those. So, part of it to me is like setting aside space for it and that letting that space be honored. And again, that's not as easy for, all of us. Some of us don't necessarily have the physical space, but also that quality of setting aside mental space, making a promise with oneself that, for example, even if we didn't set aside time today, maybe are we going to do it tomorrow? Yeah, we're going to do it tomorrow. We're going to get up. We're going to get right back on our practice tomorrow. It can also help, of course, in this time that we have all of these apps. It's helped me sometimes to use the support of an app over a period of time, have that with you on a regular basis. So at lunchtime, there have been periods when I've set aside time during lunch and just regularly practice 5 minutes or 10 minutes at lunch at my desk. I do think the main thing is to remember that this is important to us and to make that commitment and then, make good on it. And if we fail on a particular day, because we will, to just begin again the next day and try to let go of judgment and, the idea that we can't do it or we're a bad meditator or any of those things. Yeah, I think those are the sorts of things that help me.
Yeah, that's really helpful. I was slightly initially proud and then embarrassed recently when I noticed that I'd got quite a long streak on the Headspace app that I use, like 2,000 days or something, and like recognizing like, oh my goodness, I've built a real habit here for years, and then thinking actually caring about a streak is like the least mindful thing you can do. I mean, I should be like letting go of all that kind of attachment to succeeding at something, because that's very unmindful. But actually I realized that if something can help us form a habit, it's probably helpful. Another thing I've used is a tip that my colleague gave me, which is when you hear an alarm either on your own phone or somebody else's phone or some kind of thing that you might otherwise think is an interruption or like a frustration, turn it into a cue to take a breath. So like turn somebody else's like ding or ping into just a pause. And I found that a really lovely way of reframing something that used to frustrate me and having a free mindful moment regularly during the day.
Exactly. And you were talking there about moving from formal kinds of practice spaces and time, like times that we set aside for formal practice, to those informal practice moments that we can find, walking, for example, to the elevator, right, at a place where you're safe enough that you can do a little bit of like attending to the feet on the floor, peace in every step, and not feeling like you have to think and focus so much that if somebody asks you how you got to the location, you couldn't remember the steps you took because you were somewhere else mentally. So there are many ways we can bring that informal quality of presence in.
Rhonda, in that practice, you reminded us about the attention quality of mindfulness. But when we spoke, something that really struck me was that it feels to me like you think of mindfulness as something almost sort of bigger than that, in a sense. And you talked about a concept of like floating love, or a sense of sort of something bigger than ourselves, being part of something really precious. I love that idea, but I'm not sure I fully understand it. Would you like to say a bit more about it?
Yes, of course. So, and again, I offer these in all of the comments that I make here merely as just a little bit of, a sense of what's come up for me on the journey. By no means meant to suggest that this is the way it is for all of us or anything like that. But for me, mindfulness as a practice, has actually many different facets and dimensions to it. And so while one can be this kind of focusing practice, this practice that, as a person who's been a lawyer, a law professor, a teacher, a presenter, it's been very helpful to have a regular kind of practice that can help me center the mind and really, gather my attention from all the far-flung places and be able to focus at will, more or less, or incline in that direction through practice. But also, mindfulness has been a place where I can remember certain basic facts of my existence, like this life that I'm experiencing and fortunate to experience as I am right here with you in this moment and feeling the joy of that and the gratitude of that. It's not promised to me to go on indefinitely. In fact, what is more or less promised until some magic that hasn't been seen yet is developed and presented in the world, is that life is relatively short. It's got a beginning and an end, and that we don't know exactly the end date, right? And so that reminds me then that the time that we have is precious, and that my life as yours is a precious opportunity for us to, really remember that we are all part of this one mystery already, on a planet floating in the heavens right now. And when I think of those things, when I allow my mindfulness to have that quality of that dynamic multidimensionality, where it's right there to help me sort of focus a little bit more if I need that in the moment, to do something, to act in a certain way right here, right now. But it's also there to help me open up when my mind is getting too narrow and it's focused on me and mine and my own little personal little project. It gives me a touchstone into like remembering this little project that you're in is part of, in a sense, like the middle of forever, right? It's part of this mystery unbidden. I don't know how my life showed up on this wonderful, beautiful Goldilocks of a planet, but there's great gratitude that I have this experience to be here with you. And so mindfulness to me can really bring a sense of meaning and purpose, awe and mystery. And what I do sometimes think of as like that kind of quality of loving awareness. It's this, I call it floating love, the sense that, in ways that, again, are not called for, and we don't have to justify, just remembering the gift of our being present can be a space within which I can see you a bit more clearly, listen more to your experience, see the beauty and gift of your life as a manifestation unique to mine. And so, yeah, I do think that of that level of awareness, to me, it does feel a little bit like a non-transactional kind of floating love that's there and available to all of us. And I call it love because it lightens my heart. It gives me a sense of joy. It makes me feel a sense of inherent belonging, because I don't believe the universe made a mistake in selecting for us in this life. So all of those things to me feel a little bit like love, and that's why I use that term for it. But it's this quality of awareness that connects us to just life as a life
Yeah, I
force.
love this. And it's awareness, but it's also awareness linked to this idea of life being precious. And it reminds me of those stories and people I know who've had life-changing things happen to them. Often, a terrifying thing like the loss of a loved one or a terminal diagnosis.
Yep.
And sometimes that leads to a real epiphany, a kind of waking up to what really matters. Actually, I don't need to care about the money and the job and the appearance. What I do need to care about is like the people that I love and the projects I
Yeah.
care about, and connecting with nature and appreciating this precious moment right here, right now. And you're really reminding us that we have the opportunity to do that anytime, any place. Just pause, notice what's going on, focus, but also go, oh, wow, I'm alive.
Yes.
This is pretty amazing, and
Hey,
I think that's such a refreshing perspective on day-to-day living, actually.
yeah. And I thank you for amplifying that part of the part of this that's about reminding ourselves, remembering that we have this capacity with us at all times, is absolutely freely available to all of us. It's like, one capacity that no matter our objective positions in life, our circumstances, we actually share this in common. And we are all equally available to kind of remember the preciousness of our lives, the mystery of it, the fact that it, once was otherwise and one day again will be otherwise. But right now we're here. And, that in and of itself is to me just the richest gift. And it's a luxury that I kind of want to remember each day of my life if I can. And these practices help.
Rhonda, with Action of Happiness, we have a phrase that sort of models what we stand for: happier, kinder, together, reflecting the fact that, we care about our own happiness, but we also care about caring for others, and that these two things go hand in hand. And I'd love to invite you now to sort of take us on another journey inwards. But I know that you do work that is, more than just tuning into our own being, and more about how we might then bring some of that energy out into the world around us, into our connections and our relationships,
Yeah.
whether we call that a meta practice or whatever else.
Mhm.
So in whatever way feels relevant to you, would you like us to or could you help us experience a little bit of that sense?
Yes. So we've talked together a bit before about how mindfulness can support us in difficult moments of interpersonal interaction. And what I'd like to do is offer a bit of a practice that can get us a little experience exploring how to kind of release some of the tightness that can come when we're feeling ourselves a little bit triggered, and allow that to deliver us into a little bit of the metta or loving kindness practice that can really be a support. So if everybody's willing, once again, to right where we are, pause and allow yourself, in whatever way is comfortable for you, to settle in for a few minutes of this guided practice. So feeling the body as it is resting in the place that you've chosen for joining us here. So feeling again, feet on the floor or buttocks and cushion, and then allowing your attention to rest on the sensations of just breathing in and out. I invite you to call to mind a moment within your memory of a time where you've experienced a bit of conflict in the interpersonal realm around an issue. Maybe it's a sort of a social issue, maybe it's a news item, or maybe it was a time when you tried to have a conversation about such an issue and you felt you were misunderstood or disregarded, not heard, not seen. Or maybe you felt yourself having strong emotion in response to something you saw on social media or mainstream media. Whatever's coming to mind in this moment, let's allow that to be the moment that we're working with for now. And first, if you can, just sense into where you're feeling the residue of this moment in your body right now. And I've already placed one hand over the heart, because when I think of such moments, I'm thinking of one right now myself, I can feel a little bit of sort of fluttering in the belly, a little bit of tensions coming to the fore in my shoulders. And I'm just inviting, as I breathe in and out and placing this one hand over the heart, a moment of support for my own experience of this. And I invite you to do the same, because what we're doing here, using the acronym called RAIN, which is a mindfulness acronym, we are recognizing a moment of challenge, a moment of emotional, could be hijacking or at least some kind of triggering, where we felt some discomfort, some pain in reaction to some provocation or some encounter. So recognizing that that was a moment of discomfort, and the A of the RAIN acronym, accepting it for now. Yeah, that was me feeling rage in response, me feeling sadness, me feeling disrespected. That's what it felt like. And this is the residue of this in my body. So notice a sense of sadness in the belly, right? Notice, a way in which the body is still carrying some of the residue of that interaction, and just accepting for now that it impacted you. And breathing in and breathing out, offering this sort of nurturing, calm, mindful support as you reflect on this experience. And as we breathe in and out, the I of the RAIN acronym invites investigating. What was it about that encounter that really led to this particular reactivity? As you breathe in and out, did it perhaps remind you of some other slight you have experienced, or was it a way that it really highlighted a deep value of yours that in some way you want to stand for? So the investigation invitation of mindfulness just is an opportunity for us to deepen our own self-understanding about what we're going through. And there are many ways we might investigate experience. I'm just pointing to a couple of aspects of it now. So breathing in and breathing out, inviting that invitation to inquire and investigate just why we react. What are some of the circumstances or conditions that lead to our reactivity? We could have been extra hungry at that moment and having little bandwidth because of that. So really investigation opens up really that aperture on what circumstances and conditions may contribute to your reactivity. So breathing in and breathing out. And then always bringing that quality of nurturing. So the N, RAIN of the RAIN acronym we're using here, bringing in nurture as we recognize, accept, and investigate how we were reactive and invite and opening up to the choice to respond rather than react. To see that we have choices, even in those moments where we're feeling triggered. And to see that part of what we can choose to do is recognize, yes, this is a moment of difficulty. Other human beings have gone through similar moments of challenge. So right here, right now, noticing common humanity, we're all up against something. And inviting a quality of metta, loving kindness to meet us in this moment of challenge. And that quality can feel like recognizing the heart in you right now, that will to be well, even in the midst of difficulty, the will to maximize your well-being and to connect with others in ways that maximize theirs. So just imagine that heartful quality in you that is in some ways associated with what draws you to mindfulness. And imagine opening up to feel that heartfulness radiating through your own body and being as you reflect on this difficult moment, and maybe see how that feeling inside changes maybe a little bit as you open up to the love within your own heart and body and mind. And just imagine that in this moment, and in any moment you call forth metta or loving kindness, that as you are being warmed, opened up, feeling more softening as a result of that, in some ways, this quality of metta kindness might extend to those that you'll meet on the journey, those with whom you might be in difficult conversations that are ongoing or conflicts are ongoing. And even beyond that, to those who are suffering in ways that are even more severe than this moment that we're remembering. So just inviting the quality of metta to meet us in our difficulty, but then to extend to those around us who are also suffering in ways obvious and not obvious, all degrees of extreme to not so extreme, but just allowing metta, inviting metta to meet those who are suffering right where they are, including ourselves right where we are. Thank you. Thank you, and inviting, as we breathe in and out, to shift and transition from this moment of reflection on that incident, feeling the metta, the love in our hearts, and extending that, and releasing all of that, coming back to the sense of breath, and just pausing, coming back to the sense of the body, resting right where you are, and opening to engagement in the balance of the time that we have together.
Oh, Rhonda, thank you so much again. I feel a real, a sort of heart-centered spirit around that. And in fact, as I really value what the community feels about this, if you would like to share in a word or two the sort of feeling that you are cultivating and wanting to send out into the world at the end of that practice, I'd love to see what kind of words come to mind for what you're trying to share with the world, each of you, wherever you are in the world right now. So I'll just read a few of these out. Love, open, empathy, softening, tolerance, patience, healing,
patience,
warmth, calmness. There's a lot of appreciation for the rain practice, unity, understanding, reduction in pain, Yeah,
I also saw one that said, I'm
empathy.
still angry, and bless you, blessings
Yeah,
to that. Because indeed, these practices are, they're not necessarily a panacea. They're not going to instantly transform all of our sense, everything that we're going through in every way. And yet, for example, as we experience the anger, we might, just by degrees, open up to a sense of, okay, anger is here, but what else is also here? We're not trying to displace the anger. Maybe there's spaciousness for holding the anger, right? Seeing a little bit of the way in which we can experience anger, but who we are fundamentally is not reduced necessarily to that anger. Perhaps we are that anger and much more. Or we see that anger, and the part of us that sees our anger is not angry.
I also saw Nikki saying in the chat, I have lost some of my anger. So happy compromise. In a moment, I'm going to come to the questions in the Q&A. So folks, if you have a question you'd like to ask Rhonda, please feel free to use the Q&A function rather than the chat. And you can also give a little thumbs up to any other questions that you'd like to have answered, which helps them come higher up the list. But actually, that last observation about anger has reminded me of the last thing I wanted to ask you before we come to the questions, Rhonda. A critique I've heard of mindful practice is that it's sort of disconnecting from the world's problems. Here we are sitting in a room being quiet and peaceful at a time that the world needs change makers and people to solve the problems. And yet I feel what you've shown to us and explained to us is that this is, although it's an inner peace that we're cultivating, it's not actually a disconnection. It's rather more grounding that leaves us better able, I would say, to change the world. So maybe we could take that anger and channel it in positive ways to change the things that seem unjust. Or we could respond to the person that's being unfair in a more understanding and therefore effective way. What do you think? Is that how you see
Yeah.
things? That we can actually use mindfulness as a platform to change?
I do see mindfulness in ways that resonate with what you're saying, my dear Mark. I mean, I think of it as like super practical in that sense, like super practical in terms of just doing the best we can with the lives that we have, the circumstances that we're in, to affect the quality of life on the planet, affect the experience of what we hold in our hearts or envision in our mind or imagine as what justice looks like. I think of, once again, this floating love concept comes to mind because people like Martin Luther King Jr., for example, he used to describe justice as, love correcting that which stands against love. But that quality of love correcting, in a way, it's sort of presuming that, or sort of imagining a world in which we are all, struggling to kind of find a way to have our needs met, to be seen, to be recognized, to have a sense that there's enough for us here. And so, having our mindfulness practices support my mindfulness practice, support me in those moments where I get kind of stuck, is a very, very super practical way of making good on my sort of underlying ethical commitment. Because I do think mindfulness is about a way of being in the world that inclines us for the better and inclines us toward the possible and toward minimizing suffering for myself that extends to you and you and you. And all of a sudden now the world is a little bit of a kinder place. But it's grounded in that ethic of that desire to minimize harm and then giving practical tools. Oh, I notice if I just yell back at somebody who's, seemingly in a state of yelling, there may be moments where there's nothing I can do but yell back. And it's okay. But then there are moments where I might have a little bit of extra capacity to just sort of pause and just, wow, bear witness of someone is really feeling a little bit overwhelmed here. Do I meet them right where they are, or can I meet them with some other energy? So realizing the choice.
And what you're reminding us there is that the mindfulness gives us almost a sense of choice. We can
Absolutely.
say, well, maybe I need to respond in a quite strong, forceful way. But maybe I don't have to, even though that might be my instinct, because I can be mindfully aware and recognize that this may not be the time, or I might have a more effective route. So I think it's almost like living more wisely in a way.
Yeah, it is. Skillfully is another word that we sometimes, point to. But yeah, it's really, for me, it's been an ongoing, and I hope I can say I'm a lifelong learner, from experience, trying to put this into action because life seems to present no shortage of opportunities. I don't
Indeed.
know, maybe I'm the only one, but
No,
whether
very true. But I'm really conscious that we're running out of time, and I want to get to some of these great questions. So, brilliant username here. The Bipolar Vegan asks, have you got any recommendations for techniques to help stop getting distracted with ADHD?
But so a lot of love here coming up in my heart, because I've with family members and lots of people that I love, and sometimes I feel like maybe I have a tiny bit of it myself, right? This distractibility, and certainly those, there's by degrees. We are all in stages, I think, with a lot of these conditions that we identify as sort of a kind of a condition that we're beset with. Many of us, whether diagnosed or not, have some aspect of it that we're struggling with as well. I don't think of these difficulties as binary often. It's like, okay, by degrees, we're all suffering by these things. So I think with regard to ADHD and that those patterns of distractibility, first of all, always, always, always love, love, love. And just, okay, this is what it's like for me right now. And meeting ourselves right where we are with the kind of gentlest invitation to first and foremost just be kind with whatever we're going through. And I think certainly having a little bit of support for experimenting with what different kinds of practices might be a benefit. If it's particularly difficult to sit, which at times it is for me, and usually it's when I'm going through something really extreme or having something almost overwhelming happen, I will lie down and do a body scan instead. I will do a walking or moving meditation if walking isn't my modality, right? Or yours. Moving meditations, including dance, by the way, I think of as a meditation that can mirror the moving mind a bit, but also if I'm really allowing myself to give myself over to it, can start to settle myself. There are all kinds of books and supports that help us with the different ways that a particular kind of meditation, let's say, the sort of focusing of the mind kind of meditation might be difficult. So really just my main point is to have us have the sense that we can experiment with different practices and find what works for us.
Thank you. User here called Jay Teachma has asked a question that perhaps we should have described more when you use that word metta, just asking if we could say more about the word metta. I guess my understanding is I think it's a Pali word spoken in South Asia and means sort of loving kindness, and it's this idea of cultivating warmth and kindness towards others. Is that how you would describe metta? How would you?
Yes, yeah. So yes, metta is a word that I have read as being translated into loving kindness. And there are, many different ways to cultivate metta or loving kindness as a quality. It is traditionally has been featured as one of 4 kinds of qualities that over time, if one practices these kinds of practices, mindfulness, meditation, all the different things we've been talking about, 4 sorts of qualities often will arise. Loving kindness is one, compassion, sympathetic joy, which is joy in the joy of others. Like, I'm just happy because I see someone else smiling. I see Mark there. It makes me a little bit happier. I look for that. I'm like looking for things to give me joy and the joy of other people. That's a quality that can be cultivated like loving kindness and compassion through these practices. And then the 4th quality, equanimity, which is that ability to sort of be a little bit more fluid and to move as opposed to getting stuck with the changing circumstances of any life. Because any life is going to have struggle and joy. Any life is going to have moments where we're feeling tight and feeling a sense of challenge, and moments when we feel all things might be possible today. So these practices can help support us in navigating, in inclining toward the possible, and that quality of flow is one associated with that fourth abode, you might say, that might arise with mindfulness, of equanimity.
Vicky's asked a question that, you know, I've often wanted to know how to deal with myself and my own family. Any advice to help my daughter ground herself when she's spiraling with an anxiety attack? I know what she needs to do to calm, but she can't seem to get to that place in that moment.
Oh, yes. Yes. And by the way, I know someone asked what is sympathetic joy is what I had said really quickly there. And someone also asked about what RAIN means. Again, recognize, accept, investigate with nurturing non-attachment, you could say. Okay, now back to Mark's question, and the question asked about how to help when someone's feeling anxiety in particular and tempting to spiral. This is something that a lot of people are feeling these days. You know, there are a lot of different practices, but really there are a couple that I just want to point to. One is this breath work practice using, which you may have practiced here together in this community, Mark, the 4-7-8 practice. It's like a clarifying practice, has a long ancient tradition underlying it, but has been researched as a means of supporting us when we're having moments of anxiety. And it's as simple as this. You invite breathing into a count of 4, holding your breath for a count of 7, and then breathing out for a count of 8. So we're intentionally breathing out a little bit longer than we were breathing in, right? Once again, breathing in for 4, pausing for 7 counts, and then breathing out for 8 counts. So we're silently counting as we do that. And again, just gently allowing yourself to see how you might make that practice your own. I will say that's a practice I've offered students who are in distress getting ready for an exam. I was on a plane once when a woman was really anxious about takeoff, and she kind of grabbed my hand and I said, okay, let's do this one practice. And then the other person sitting, I was on the aisle, she's in the middle, the person in the window said, I want to do the practice too. So we all sat there 4-7-8ing ourselves into calm for takeoff.
I love that. I have a sort of adapted version of that practice because I can't ever remember exactly the right numbers, which I just called IPSO breathing. IPSO stands for in, pause, slowly out. So you kind of do a breath in, a pause, and then a longer breath out. Seems to be capturing what you said there. Let's just do one more before we wrap up, because there's another sort of final exercise and comment I'd love us to share. Actually, a really good question I saw pop up in the chat, which I think really fits to the theme of the event. Andrea just said, have you got any tips when you feel overwhelmed, tired, and just struggling with difficulties to overcome our challenges?
Yes. Well, again, first and foremost, it's like recognizing that if you're feeling overwhelmed and tired, there's nothing wrong with that. You know, we will feel that way in response to the things we're up against right now. I almost feel like if we're not feeling a little bit overwhelmed and tired, you know, maybe we're either, as they say, a pet, a dog, right, who's just able to flow with everything, or we're already living in a monastery. So for the rest of us who are out in the world, again, love, love, love. Like, imagine if you had a child who came to you and was saying, I'm really feeling overwhelmed and tired. What would be your response? Just as much love. You put down everything and just see if you can be a soft place for that loved one, that child to fall. And so allowing your mindfulness practice to be the same kind of soft place for us to fall when we know we're overwhelmed and tired. That may mean give ourselves a break, take a nap, take a longer nap, rest for a while. Rest is a complete practice sometimes. Just saying no for a while so that you can restore, right, that energy. Another thing, Qigong practice, right? I do this, there's certain Qigong movements. So Qigong is a practice that is, again, ancient origin, from Chinese heritage teachers in the US that I've had a chance to study a bit with and learn from. It's a practice for really revivifying the sense of energy, chi is called in that particular tradition, through the body. And it allows like shaking and tapping on the body in different ways, really allowing ourselves to sort of kind of tap ourselves back into a kind of a feeling that we have some energy to bring to whatever we might bring it to. One of my meditation teachers always did a bit of Qigong before sitting meditation. Some people do walking before sitting to kind of bring back, or any kind of movement can actually be a good pre-meditation support. And but again, if you can't meditate, it can just be a good support for just gathering your attention back. So just moving the arms up, shaking them down,
I love
tapping.
this. I tried some Qigong recently and I really find it powerful. My own personal movement practice is cycling. I use cycling as a meditative time, but obviously I don't close my eyes because that would be too dangerous.
Right.
We're running out of time. Just to say to everyone who's been asking in the chat, a video of this wonderful conversation with Rhonda will be circulated tomorrow with links to the chat file and also links to Rhonda's fantastic website, some free mindfulness resources, the book. So please do use that to stay in touch with Rhonda, to follow, to sign up and get updates and so on if you'd like to. This is a fantastic book called The Inner Work of Racial Justice.
Yes, and there's an audio
what's the subtitle?
available.
I love the subtitle of this book. What's the subtitle?
The subtitle is Healing Ourselves and Transforming Our Communities.
I love that.
Mindfulness.
Yeah. Very nice. Two final things. So first of all, well, in a moment, I'd love to leave you with the final word before we part, Rhonda, but I'd just like to invite everyone just to join me in a 30-second practice that we do at the end of Action for Happiness gatherings. We're just going to pause and take a mindful moment and just bring to mind, in this place of mindful awareness, something that you're grateful for or appreciative of this time that we've spent together and all the wisdom and inspiring ideas that we've heard from Rhonda. And just holding in your mind that sense of appreciation and sending that warmth and that appreciation out into the world as well, and wishing that towards others, to all beings, wherever they may be, and to particularly places in the world that are perhaps lacking some of the sense of togetherness and compassion and friendship that we've experienced here today. Thank you. And if you'd like to share in the chat one last time just a few fantastic words about what you've appreciated and what you've taken away and what you might do as a result of this time with Rhonda, I'd love to hear what comes to mind for you, what's on your mind, what you're going to take away. I'm seeing compassion for self, how to be calmer, equanimity. It's helped me to focus. I'm feeling inspired. I love to learn and practice metta, rain, more loving kindness, joy. Thanks for a lovely session. Nice to spend time with like-minded people, and much more. Thank you, Rhonda. So lovely to be together and also to see this appreciation for you and your work. I'd like to leave you with a final word. What thought would you like to leave us with as we part today?
Well, I see it actually coming up in a few of the comments that are coming in the chat, and that is simply that remember, mindfulness is a practice of just remembering the most important thing. So remember that your life matters, that you have this capacity to feel yourself well, to bring yourself back to a sense of calm and ease, and that, love doesn't cost anything for us to give. And it's really, I think, love and gratitude, they increase on being released rather than decrease. So check that out in your own experience, and let's see if we can't bring these sense of love and gratitude out into the world so it can be that superpower that it really is.
That's a beautiful thought to leave us with. Thank you so much, Rhonda. Keep up the inspiring work. Thank you, everyone, for being here, for participating so beautifully, and we'll see you again next time. Thank you.